Annalena Baerbock, you just got elected as the President of the United Nations General Assembly, only the 5th woman holding this position. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You only have 1 year in office. What would you like to be the kind of known accomplishments of your tenure after this year?
That together we have made the United Nations fit for the future and fit for purpose, meaning for what the UN was founded for, and this is ensuring peace and security, development and human rights. And we are in shaky times, and the international order, the UN system is under heavy political pressure, financially, politically. So kind of the normal given to make this organization really fit for the challenges is a bit more challenging than maybe in other decades.
What would be, maybe you can talk a little bit about that, like the first 3 main topics you're going to focus on and how?
Well, 2 topics are already set kind of by the calendar, because the 80th session, this is how we call it, from September to September, is also the anniversary year, because 80 years ago the United Nations was founded. So one big actually nice thing is to make in this year very clear why we need this international system, why we need the United Nations, especially in those times. However, obviously the times are very challenging, so it's not the mood for a big anniversary party, but I believe it's really the moment to say where we reflect ourselves as an organization, where can we become better, more efficient and more precise, that the work of the UN really delivers to the people on the ground. And this is the second big task, the so-called UN80 process. Secretary General Guterres has started this, so the modernization of this organization in this upcoming year. So we have to ask ourselves very deep questions. How much sense does it make to have so many different institutions, like, for example, we have for the big issue of migration, UNHCR, Organization for Refugees, IOM, Organization for Migration. Then UNICEF, for example, the big organization for children, is obviously also dealing a lot with children who have to migrate or to flee. And to see how we can have these structures more efficient to be also more precise in a work, and this counts for all the topics on climate, on development, is this second big task, not only by myself, but obviously of the whole organization. And the third point is that in this session, also the next Secretary General has to be maybe not elected, but the whole process has to be prepared that at the end of the term, the election can take place. And you mentioned that I'm only the 5th woman in 80 years, and as President for the General Assembly, but for Secretary General, there has never been a woman in this organization. So obviously this is also a task with very interesting decisions to be made.
So do I understand you right, you're going to fight for a woman in this position?
Well, I'm the convener of the will of the General Assembly, so for all 193 countries. And I've heard a strong call from many delegations here in New York saying, now it's time for a woman, but it's not up to me, or it's not up to a single country. But the procedures are that in the end, the General Assembly elects the upcoming Secretary General by recommendation from the Security Council, so from the P5 members. And the very important decisions being taken is how many candidates will be there. So you actually have a choice in a General Assembly. This is a proposal by many member states that there should be more candidates. But this is really work in progress, and this is also work which is going on already right now. And I will take over this task for my predecessor, the current president. And this is why I also said being the president of the General Assembly is a team sport, because it's only 1 year. So you jump in and then you're already leaving. So you can only do that together with your predecessor, with all the member states, with the Secretary General, with the Security Council. And this is what I really like about the job, that it's up to the team spirit everybody shows.
You just said, Mrs. President, is this the right way to address you now, or?
Well, some say here, Madam President.
Madam. Okay.
In German, we could use the female form. In English, yeah.
Okay, so I like that, Madam President. You just said you want to become a unifier. I mean, the United Nations, the General Assembly, has lost a lot of trust, especially in the global South. How are you going to repair that?
Again, this is not a topic only for one person, but the role of the president is to see how you can build majorities, consensus. And I have heard a nice quote here that consensus doesn't mean unanimity on every topic, but a broad consensus of the international community. Or sometimes, and these are the nice technical parts which I think the UN is really strong in, that sometimes people just stay silent. So you say, we make a proposal, and if nobody rejects within the next 48 hours, it will be taken on board. So try to organize consensus. Doesn't mean that everybody has to agree on every single point, but you really have to bring together actors who want to do progressive steps, building the future together, and also see that you focus on the things which unites us instead of looking at the half sentence which divides us.
The approach towards Israel is, of course, one very controversial topic. How much might it help you that our new German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, has changed his take on Israel? Is more critical with Israel. Will this help your position here?
Well, obviously, I changed my national hat towards now the light blue UN hat, so I'm not speaking for Germany here anymore. And the General Assembly has been very clear on the issue of the situation in Gaza, on the Middle East situation in resolutions, but also by the international courts, for example. So the ICJ, the International Court for Justice, published last year its advisory opinion on the two-state solution, but also on the responsibilities for Israel as an occupying power, underlining also with regard to the current situation, the obligation with regard to humanitarian aid, situation with regard to food, but also the right of every state to live sovereign and in dignity. And this has been the line, because you asked me also as a German in my former role, as a former foreign minister of Germany, underlining that the base for the work of Germany is the security of the state of Israel, but also international law, including international humanitarian law.
You just referred to your former role as Germany's Foreign Secretary, Secretary of State, Foreign Minister. You are known, or you were known, as someone who was really outspoken when it comes to criticizing human rights validations, also, for example, with Russia when it comes to the war in Ukraine. How much might this complicate your role now as a unifier in the United Nations? Or is it the other side, that many people know you well and respect you for your outspokenness? How did you receive that in your first hours in your new job?
Well, even the weeks and months before, when I was coming here to New York, obviously it's helpful that everybody knows who you are, and there are many, many connecting points, and this is why I think there was a tendency over the last years that presidents of the General Assembly has been before foreign ministers, even prime ministers, because they have a big network and are interconnected in the world. And I could also feel that it helps a lot that I've been in the last years in many of the countries from the permanent representatives here. So the Central Asian states, for example, said, you know, when we were discussing about water, climate crisis, and how it could bridge also the dividing lines in our areas, that there are already connecting points with the work I have done before. And on the other hand, I mean, it's like in normal life, if you have a new job, you have a new job description. And this is just the normal way, not only for politicians, diplomats, but I would say everybody working. So obviously the job description of a president is different than being representative of one country. Now I'm being the representative of 193 countries. However, the foundation, the compass is the same, because the Constitution of Germany is based on the Charter of the United Nations, and the foundation of my work here in New York is also the Charter of the United Nations. So this is why I underlined also here in my introduction speech that I see my role in defending the Charter and speaking up for the Charter, as I've done in the past. I will also in the future.
You just kind of mentioned it yourself. There's a lot of financial pressure on the United Nations. We have Donald Trump as President of the United States in the White House right now. He's not a huge fan of multinational institutions such as the United Nations. What does this mean precisely when you say the United Nations needs to become more efficient? What do you think you will be targeting on?
We have to deal with the world as it is. And if there are member states, and especially big member states with big contribution, announcing that they might reduce the contributions, obviously an organization has to deal with it. But I find very important that besides new financial announcement, anyhow, this organization needs a modernization. And this is again a work I can build on from before, because also beforehand we had many discussions with especially those countries who are believing in the multilateral system, who are believing in the United Nations, how we can update this organization to the challenges, the tasks of a 21st century. Maybe taking it very simple, we are all speaking about AI. So there are new methods where you don't need handwritten protocols anymore. We have here an organization where you have translation in 6 official languages and sometimes even more, because multilateralism means also multilingualism. However, translation is a heavy cost burden for this institution. So every minute you speak really counts. So simple things of saying, okay, really working as a modern organization with more digital products, but also clear speaking times, limits on speaking times. And this sounds so simple and easy, but these are tasks we have to do anyhow. The example I gave before, if organizations are doing similar groundwork in the field, it would be more efficient if you would really synchronize this work. So this is why I suggested, but not only out of the blue for myself, but because I heard it from so many, that we should really look in these challenging moments, what would be more efficient without, and this is important to me, without having this as a pure cost-cutting exercise. Because what the goal is at the end is to preserve the core of the United Nations. And this brings me to the points again: peace and security, development and human rights, and to deliver on this work. Will everybody like this process? Probably not, but this is why it has to be so inclusive, it has to include so many actors, because again, we need a big majority for this organization to make it fit for the future.
Last question, talking about majorities, then we of course have the P5 and the veto countries. That's also one reason why many people say the UN is a toothless tiger, because when it comes to the Security Council, hardly any resolution which really could change the world does come through anymore, because one of these countries is putting in a veto. Is this also something you're gonna deal with as the president of the United Nations General Assembly, or is this something for another UN body?
Well, the Security Council, by the Charter, is taking a decision on peace and security. They have the only veto power, which we do not have in other institutions. But the Charter also gives a great role to the General Assembly. And using this role more intensively, if there is a blockage in the Security Council, there have been already some steps in the past. Different initiative, so the resolution for peace, for example, but also initiatives saying if there is a veto, there has to be an explanation in the General Assembly. So there is already work going on in this direction. And again, my role is, if there is a big will in the UNGA General Assembly to move forward on these tracks, which you can see also in this the name is revitalization process, so there is already a proposal being discussed, and there are many aspects in it. So yes, not only for myself, but for the General Assembly, there will be a bigger role in the future with regard to peace and security. However, if I may, I would like to say at the end, also coming from the national system, we don't have perfect national systems. We are not living in a perfect world. So we have also the cases in every country that something which is written there by law, you're not allowed obviously to kill somebody else or to be a thief. Anyhow, you have these cases in every system, and you follow up with courts and everything else. But you cannot prevent everything. And it's similar here in the United Nations. This is not the perfect system, but it's the best system we are having. So yes, lately there has been a lot of frustration. You called it a tiger without teeth, that in the world of 120 conflicts, one might think, okay, what can the United Nations do? However, we have also seen lately, for example, in Syria, that there always comes a moment where it's very important that the United Nations had a clear standing with regard to Syria in the past, breaching of the Charter, and then being there and being ready for reconstruction, for humanitarian aid, and also for peace and security agreements. So it's hard work, but it's work the world definitely needs right now.
Madam President, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.